All right, class, welcome to the first day of English literature. As you know, our first focus is going to be on modernism in the English language. Now, who can give me a summary of what modernism is? Anyone? Anyone have an idea?
It's our first day.
It's okay. Modernism was going on for 40 or 50 years. No one has any idea what modernism is?
Traditional.
Traditional? Well, I guess it was a tradition in art and literature and things for a while. To understand modernism, you first need to know that this term is not quantitative, it's qualitative. Qualitative, there we go. It's not a number, it's a quality, right? Because right now, we're in a modern era, but we're not in the modern period. So it's a difficult term, but I think we can understand it. If modernism boomed in the 1920s, so if we look at what happened in the English-speaking world and in Europe in the 1920s, I think we'll get a better understanding of what the term means. So, Stephen, I know you're a history man. Can you summarize for us, in just a few sentences, what was going on in 1920 with World War I? Just give me a summary.
The world was extinguishing or ending or discovering they had taken war that they had fought without industrialization. They had industrialized war, and they had taken these old packs and without realizing it, started butchering each other with new modern weapons that they didn't understand.
Good. Nice summary. Now, World War I officially ended in 1918, but the aftermath, I mean, Europe was destroyed. And something that I think a lot of people forget is a lot of Americans were in World War I as well. They were hired as mercenaries, they were hired as nurses, they were hired as medics, everything. So not only was Europe in a rough spot, so was America. The Great Depression. Can anyone give me a summary of the Great Depression? Luigi?
People overinvested in the stock market and realized that it wasn't worth as much as they thought it was and lost all their money, which affected the economy of the United States drastically and also the rest of the world.
Nice summary. So the Great Depression officially didn't start, if you look at your history books, till 1929. But all through the 20s we were building up to that, and then big crash. What about prohibition? Ooh, it's a bad word. Alexandra, would you mind giving us a summary?
That was just, they were eliminating all the alcohol and saying that it wasn't legal and you couldn't drink anymore in the U.S. And a lot of people started to do what was called bootlegging at the time, so they'd make their own alcohol and bring it over the line. So.
Excellent. So by the government enforcing prohibition, that led to a spike in organized crime. Organized crime was always there, but especially in the 20s, you get your names like Al Capone, Bugsy Siegel, all that stuff was going on. So, how are we looking in the 1920s? Is this good? Bad?
Not too good.
Not too good. Not too good. Okay. So, that's what was going on with the society as a whole. Things were kind of going down the tubes. But the way that individuals were thinking in the 1920s came from people like this guy. Who's this guy?
Karl Marx.
Karl Marx. Jha, do you know who this person is? Karl Marx? Who can give Jha a quick summary of what Karl Marx was all about? Thanks.
Father of socialism, basically, but it moved on towards communism.
Excellent.
The idea that a community has to work together for the general good of the community. However, others took that term to communism.
Nice. Very good summary. Well, do you know the name of the book that he published in 1848? Or excuse me, 1848?
No?
You know half of it. The Communist Manifesto.
Oh, yeah.
So that was published around 1850, but it takes a while for these ideas to snowball. But by the time the 20s were roaring, people were very aware of class structures, class systems, because the rich were very small, but they were very visible. People were aware that they were being put into a class system. What about this fella? Tim, you probably know him as well.
Stalin?
Nope.
No?
Nope.
Who is this?
Nietzsche.
Oh, Nietzsche.
Friedrich Nietzsche. Does anyone know what Nietzsche was all about? Philosopher? What was his most famous work?
God is dead.
God is dead. Exactly. That's the most famous line from the book he wrote called The Antichrist, and that was published, I think, in 1850 or in that same era. And it wasn't so much anti-Christ, the character, it was anti-Christianity. So he was a very prominent atheist. And atheism, once again, wasn't a new idea, but his literature had got extremely popular, and the idea that all religion isn't great was starting to become popular. What about this fella?
Darwin.
If he was holding a beagle, he would Darwin. Can anyone give me a short summary of what this guy did for us?
He made observations on an island of variations in animals based on their environment and came up with a theory of evolution.
Excellent, excellent. And last but not least, Freud. Jacques, can you give us a short summary of what Freud was all about? You know?
Philosopher?
Yeah, he was a philosopher. He was a big thinker. Dealt a lot with dreams.
He's a psychologist, and he came up with the term of denial, as well as the ego and superego and the id. And
Yep.
This is a big influence in the 1870s.
Sure, sure. And psychoanalytics was what we had with this guy here. He was saying, we've got a brain, we're only using this much of it, but the other part of it's awake, it's working, but we don't exactly know what it's working on. So these ideas that were all birthed around the turn of the century were getting big in the 1920s. We've got Marx dealing with social classes, Nietzsche saying, no good, religion's out of here. This guy's saying, wait a minute, he's making some changes in science. He's saying, you know, maybe we didn't come from a divine creator, maybe we evolved. And then you got Freud saying, we're kind of dangerous because we got a lot going on that we don't even understand. So these are our thinkers changing the way that writers are thinking. So if you change the way you think, what else does that change? Remember, this is a lit class.
Life? The way you write.
The way life and the way you write. If you change the way you think, it's going to change the way you write. So we have a new breed of writers who are coming out and writing the type of literature that no one had seen before. It was very different. It was, some described it as hopeless, dark, short, quaint, and it was because people, the way people think, or excuse me, the way people thought was changing. So it manifests itself in writing. So does anyone recognize any of these names? Has anyone read any books by any of these modernists? T.S. Eliot was a poet, right? The Wasteland was his big manifesto. Are you guys familiar with the Broadway play Cats? You've heard of that? It's based on a series of children's poems that T.S. Eliot wrote. Fitzgerald. There's not a high school kid in America who likes Fitzgerald because they were, yeah, exactly. They were assigned to read The Great Gatsby. All right. Now, the novel that we're going to be looking at, Ernest Hemingway, top guy right here. This was his writing philosophy. Does anyone want to read that for me? Just read it out loud.
I'm trying to make, before I get through, a picture of the world, or as much of it as I have seen, boiling it down always rather than spreading it out thin.
What does that mean? Well, what does that tell you about his writing style? What does that tell you about what we're going to find inside of this book?
I think he wants to get to the meat of social issues as he saw them
Right?
and understood them.
Right. Hemingway was famous for his short declarative sentences, for his real economy of words. So, what we're going to do is, on the first day of class, we're going to take the first page of this novel and we're going to have our first writing assignment. I want everyone to read the first page, and then I want you to summarize it for me. But we are going to write in the same style that Hemingway writes. I want your summaries to be very short, very declarative. As a matter of fact, I want your summary to be 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, 4 words, 5, 6 words, 7 words, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 words. Okay? And then we're going to come and write it on the board, and then we're going to have a nice summary of one of the main characters in this book. So take 2 minutes. Just hit pause. Yeah?
I have a question.
So does everyone know how many words? They got it done and prepared? Everyone ready, more or less? Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay, so when you come up to the board, I guess you can start. Okay. When you come to the board, I want it to look like this. So the first summary, which is one word, will be here. Second summary, here. Third summary here, and so on and so forth. So it'll look just like that over here. Who's our second word summarizers?
So 2 words.
2 words summarize that entire page.
Can I misspell that?
No, you're good.
You can correct my spelling if you want.
If it's Spanish, it's spelled wrong, but if it's English, I have no idea.
Okay, I'm not that tall, okay, so this is us, okay.
Secure. Correct my spelling over here.
Can I say and or no?
Nope, 2
Okay.
words.
Okay.
2 words.
Okay, then. Wow. Okay, well.
3 words.
And while you're up there, change my A to an I. If you're
This is not a grammar class. This is not a grammar class.
I'm not gonna change it. Okay, you're fine. You're fine.
This is how these messy things
I know they're good though, aren't they?
Why not?
I know, seriously.
Wait, you have to do the word for me.
Okay, he's got 5 words.
But it's pronounced.
Well, it's
Good job.
are. Yours actually
It's not
makes sense.
indivisible.
It's a sentence.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah, I go with
Is it?
Oh,
just 5
you
words. It doesn't matter.
understand?
Well, yeah.
I know it's like, without the and, you gotta
Yeah,
understand.
that's, I speak it.
What we're practicing here, and what's going to be very important in this literature class and every literature class that you take after this, is the ability to summarize a passage, the ability to summarize a character. So by doing this, starting with 1 word and working your way out, we're going to have a definitive picture of Robert Kahn, 2 words that no one's written up here yet, the boxer. And through this summary of this character, you'll understand why he's doing what he does for the following 300 pages.
Wait, we weren't allowed to use his name, you said?
No, I'm surprised no one has.
Oh.
That would have been number 2 for me.
His
Number 1 may
name.
have been boxer, 2 his name, 3, but
I thought you couldn't use his name, but I don't know why they came up with that, like, it's like making things complicated.
You mean the longer you stay here, the
When
more
I'm
you have
writing
to
on the board,
write?
I spell everything
Yeah,
wrong, but
I
I'm
had
not
like
a
12
speller,
words.
but just when I'm writing on the board.
we can just cut it. We don't need to film this.
Everything
You guys write 9
that
words.
close to it.